So today we are going to learn how to solve a triangle. And what I mean by solve a triangle is, like in this example, they give us an angle, they give us a side, and it's my job to find the other angle, the other side, and the other side. So the word, all that means, what does it mean to solve a triangle? Just find everything you're missing. Okay? So find all missing sides and missing angles. That's all that means. So I'm really not going to teach you anything new today. We're just going to use a few skills we've learned. One thing that helps me is just to list out, like, measure of angle A equals what? Measure of angle B equals what? Measure of angle C is what? And then what is A? What is B? And what is C? Start with what we know. We don't know the measure of angle A, though it's easy to find. We know the measure of angle B is 62 degrees. We know the measure of angle C, it has a square there, so that's 90 degrees. Little a is the one across from big A. I don't remember if I told your class this or not, but I definitely told my fourth block that the little letters refer to the length of the side across from the angle. Did I talk about that yesterday in here? It's like this is little a, this is little b, and then that's little c. So capital letters are used for angles, lowercase letters are used for sides. You don't get A, B, and C confused with SOHCAHTOA, it's not the same thing, okay? So little a would be this side. I don't know what that is. Little b would be this side. I know that's 22.6. Not degrees, that's a length. Looks like miles, 22.6 miles. So it's my job to go through and fill in the rest. I'm going to do the easy part first. Measure of angle A. I know that these three angles add up to 180. 180 minus 90 is 90. 90 minus 62, what, 28? So the measure of angle A is 28 degrees. Because 62 plus 28 plus 90 adds to 180. Now you could also label what you want or what you find. Now it's kind of your choice. What do you want to find first? You want to find this? Or do you want to find this? AB or BC? BC? Okay. So Christina wants to find BC first. We know all three angles. What do you want our reference angle to be? Just don't choose the 90. Do you want it to be 62 or 28? Your choice. 28. She chose 28. So she chose that as our reference angle. So we're trying to find this. So let's let that be our x. Or you could have, I guess, in theory, just put little a, right? And we know that to that angle, and this would be adjacent. So which trig ratio uses adjacent so that we can find opposite? Tangent. So TOA, T-O-A. So the tangent of 28 degrees equals O over A x over 22.6. Well, we did multiple ways. We could put this over 1, cross multiply. We get 22.6 times the tan of 28 equals x, or I probably should have used little a instead of x. 6 times the tangent of 28 degrees. I have no idea. Good thing we have these. By the way, in the old days, even before I was in high school, it was pretty difficult to calculate this stuff. And they had these like little slide rules and stuff. Luckily, I never had to do it, but I hear it's way easier now. 12.02, and for lengths I usually round to 2 decimal places. So is my x, which happens to be across from big A, so that's little a. So this is 0.02. And if I wanted, instead of x, I could put 12.02, and I'm going to get rid of my O and my A in case I want to use a different trig ratio. And one more thing to find out, and that's little c you could use SOHCAHTOA, or you could use Pythagorean theorem. Which one do you want to use? Your choice. Pythagorean theorem is probably easiest. So we know that if this is little c, that 12.02 squared plus 22.6 squared equals c squared. Or you could have used SOHCAHTOA. I'm going to type 12.02 squared plus 22.6 squared in my calculator. $655.24. Take the square root. Take the square root, and I got 25.60. So I got C as 25.6. Not a good idea to put units on it. This is miles, this is miles. My lighting is not being very nice to me today. Now, you may also in geometry, instead of seeing this referenced as little a, you might see it written like this. That means the same thing, BC. Does that make sense? That means from B to C. So just kind of, I know you guys took geometry, but it's been a while. So, any questions? No? So I found all three angles, all three sides. By definition of solving, I have solved. Next. And by the way, it's not always A, B, C. It just happens to be the first three letters of the alphabet. So that tends to be what people use, but it doesn't have to be A, B, and C. So we need to find the measure of angle A, measure of angle B, and I already know A is 51 degrees. I'm going to put that down. I need to find measure of angle C, which I already know is 90 degrees. And just because I'm running out of room, I'll put little a over here. Little a is the side that's across from the angle A, so that'd be 9 inches. Little b would be the side across from angle B, which we don't know. So I'll make that be, we don't know. And then little c would be the hypotenuse. So I need to find 3 things to complete this. I need to find that, and that. I would do the angles first. 51, 90. So 90 plus 51 plus what is 180? What would I need here? 180 minus 90 is 90. 90 minus 51, 39. So B is 39 degrees. You may have caught on that because 3 angles in a triangle add up to 180 and 90 is already being used, that the other 2 angles will always add up to 90. Okay. Makes it easier. So I know measure of angle B is 39 degrees. All right. Which do you want to find first? AC, or little b? Or do you want to find AB, which is little c? AB? She wants to find the hypotenuse first. Now, that's okay, but if you're using Pythagorean theorem, I would encourage you to find the legs first, because then it's easier to plug in the Pythagorean theorem. But, because if you find a hypotenuse, then you have a leg, it's just hard, it just takes an extra step, because you have to subtract the leg squared from both sides. So, do you still want AB, or do you want the leg? Oh, she's going to stick with the hypotenuse, all right. So let's let this be little c. That's what we're trying to find. That's what Christina wants to find first. Which reference angle do you want to use, Christina? 39 degrees or 51 degrees? 51. Notice she had options. So 51, I know my 9, and my 9 is opposite, so that's opposite. And then my C that I'm trying to find is my hypotenuse. So which trig ratio uses O and H? So TOEIC. So which one? So SOH. So the sine of 51 degrees equals O 9 over H, which I don't know. I labeled that as C. Cross multiply. And I get C times sine of 51 degrees equals 9. To solve for C, divide both sides by sine of 51 degrees. By the way, when you guys get into like trigonometry, if you leave out the degree sign, your teacher will take off points. For me, it's not as big of a deal to me, but that stuff is important. Right? So, 9 divided by sine 51. approximately 11.58. And we're dealing in inches. It's almost a foot. Right, 12 inches in a foot. Now, if you love SOHCAHTOA and you have these angles, you could use SOHCAHTOA to find the other leg, or you could use Pythagorean theorem. You'll get the same answer. Which one do you want to use? She wants to use SOHCAHTOA this time instead of Pythagorean theorem. That is fine. Well, we have a lot of options here. Do you still want reference angle? 51? Oh, she wants to change it to 39. Okay, let's see what we have here. I'm going to redraw it. So she wants to use 39 as a reference angle this time. You could have just left it as 51, but she wants to use 39, that's fine. And we need to use something we already know. So I could either use my 9 or I could use my 11.58. I would encourage you to use the one that you didn't round. Because if you use the one you rounded and then you plug it in, it's going to cause your other answer to be a little bit more off. So I would choose the 9. You did not round the 9. And we're trying to find this now, right? You could have, in theory, done a squared plus b squared equals 11.58 squared. All right, so b is my O, and then this is my adjacent. So which trig ratio will I use? TOA, tan. So the tan of 39 degrees equals O, which I labeled as B, over A, which is 9. Cross multiply, or however you like to do this. You don't have to cross multiply. You get 9 times tan of 39 equals B. Type that in your calculator. And I get 7.29 if I round to the nearest hundredth. Okay, just if you had used Pythagorean theorem, it would have been the square root of 11.5 minus 9 squared. Notice I am still going to get around 7.29. So had I used Pythagorean theorem, you would have got the same thing. So you have lots of flexibility. Questions? All right. That's all the examples I have, but I don't feel like that's enough. So I'm going to make another example on the back. Let's say you have a triangle. And a triangle, there's 3 triangles up there. Triangle, triangle, triangle. And assume this is completely straight, means 180 degrees of that line. My line's off by a little bit. And let's say they tell you this. Let's say they tell you this is right. And let's say they tell you that from here to here is 9. And that this is 51 degrees. Now, solving, I have a lot to solve, so I need to find this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, this side, this side, this side, and maybe even list out the whole side. That's a lot of work, right? Good thing I made this problem simpler, and we already did this triangle, did we not? We just did that triangle. It didn't change. So I did that on this side. We didn't spend forever on one problem. So do you remember what the hypotenuse was? If you had 51, 90, I think this was 39, right? What was the hypotenuse on the back? Do you remember? It's the same triangle, 9, 51, and 39. This one, 9, 51, 39. The hypotenuse was 11.58, right? So first, what I would do on a problem like this is cover it up. I usually do it mentally, solve for one triangle, and then solve for the other triangle. And sometimes you have to see it as a big picture. But we found that this is 11.58. I think it was inch. We found the leg was, the other leg was what? It'll be 7.29. Right? We already did that problem. If this is a straight angle, and this is 90, straight meaning supplementary, if this is 90, then by definition of a straight line, this is also 90. Oh, wow. I feel like we need one more piece of information. So now I have this triangle. Right? And they tell me that this side, I can't really use that. So they didn't tell me enough information to solve this. So technically I would say I can't solve, but let me go ahead just so we can finish. Let's say they tell us this is 68 degrees. Actually, yeah. No, change my mind. Let's say they say this is 12. Does that make sense? So the length here is 12. Well, they didn't tell me any angles, so let's do that first. Let's find this angle. Let's find that first. This is the right triangle. I can use SOHCAHTOA. Again, I'm getting kind of confused, so I'm going to cover that up. So, in reference to this angle, 12 H. And do you want to find O or A first? Your choice. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm saying it wrong. We're trying to find this angle, so in order to find an angle, we have to use two things we know. We know this is 12. We better use the 7.29, which is my A. to find an angle, you have to know the length of two sides. So which one uses A and H? Cosine. So the cosine of my angle equals A over H. We learned this yesterday. Right? And we learned that we just take the inverse. This is what we did yesterday. So if you type that in, cosine inverse, 7.29 divided by 12, you get approximately 52.6 degrees. So now I know that this is 52.6 degrees. Now the rest is kind of easy because, one, if this is 52.6 and that's 90, then I have 90 left. 52.6 plus what is 90? That'd be what, like 37.4? You can use some calculators, you can't do that in your head. 37.4. And then to find this leg, I'm going to use Pythagorean theorem plus, we'll let that be. This ends up being this. Pythagorean theorem, I make jumps. I've done it so many times. You know, I've done it, tracked the hypotenuse, leg, and take the square root. I just type it in all at once to save time. Square root, 12 squared, minus 7.29 squared, 9.5. Three. And that makes sense to me because look at this. If this was 51 degrees, making a 9, and this is just slightly bigger, 52.6, you would expect this leg to be slightly bigger than that. And it is, 9.53. Okay? Now something like this, I would just go through, just make sure I labeled all angles, all sides, all angles. Okay? Any questions on this? This is called solving. I think it's fun. Notice double triangles, hence why I gave you an example. You may want to start on the back and do the simple ones first before you do the double triangle ones. That's just a suggestion. And then there is an IXL that'll help you practice the skill. A 90, you already know the drill. 90. Your objective for today, in case you don't know, was can you solve a triangle completely? And actually, it's a right triangle. Solve a right triangle completely. We could even add using trig ratios. SOHCAHTOA. Or Pythagorean theorem if you want, if it works. Rate yourself. And I cannot stress anymore that everything I've taught you only works for right triangles, 90-degree triangles. So there's a whole other system if it's not right. And then homework. The one I almost did for you, obviously. Let's say 26. I'll give you tonight, Saturday, Sunday. So it'd be the 29th, I believe. Yep. Solve the triangle using trig. We're going to talk about area, elevation, and depression for angles. And then how do you solve triangles that aren't right? Review, and we'll take a test. We'll be done with trigonometry. By the way,